I first heard Steve's music, the album was Please Don't Touch, which is still, I think, one that has a special place in my heart because it's, in many ways, I think it's the most eclectic and ambitious solo record of all. And it was, maybe I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I hadn't even heard Genesis at that point, so this was like really an introduction, not just to Steve's solo work, but to Steve in general. And it was a friend of mine that bought it on, I think it was a cassette tape from W.H. Smith's in Hemel Hempstead. And I remember just being kind of blown away by the whole kind of musical journey, this incredibly diverse, eclectic, all over the place. And those are kind of the records I really liked, the records that kind of always surprised you at every kind of turn.
So there I was doing this thing called Please Don't Touch. Again, the title track was a reject Genesis piece. It was something I'd written that had lots of fives in it, and I thought it was a real good piece, and good enough to leave the group for, good enough to leave home for, in a way. I recorded a lot of it in Los Angeles. I worked with Brandy Crawford. It was the first thing she'd ever had released in England. And she was fabulous. Chester Thompson, who was fabulous on it. Richie Havens, who was glorious. Of course, all the English people were fantastic too. John Aycock did a wonderful job. My brother did a wonderful job on it. Tom Fowler, who I think had worked with Chester in Zappa's band. So, you had people who'd worked with Zappa and Weather Report, and there was little old me, little thinking that, those on the other side of the Atlantic were listening to what we were doing as well. I didn't expect any of those guys to actually like what I did, but quite a few of them did. I put a lot into that album. I got sick halfway through, ended up in hospital with ulcers and all sorts of stuff, but I didn't want to down tools with it really, so I resented the time off that I was sick, and then of course I was back on the horse with it in England, and wanted to finish the thing off, and I think in retrospect side 2 was a lot stronger perhaps than side 1, but we don't have sides anymore unless you've got vinyl.
I think that's what I love about progressive rock, what people say is progressive rock, is the idea that you don't really have to subscribe to any blueprint or structure, established structure, in the way that people who write 3-minute pop songs, of course, are always kind of drawn back to that same verse chorus. With progressive rock or with longer form pieces, there are no rules really. We talked about that piece on Please Don't Touch again, Icarus Ascending.
That one.
Where there's 30 seconds where you go through reggae.
Yeah.
What else do you go through? You go through all sorts of different styles.
Sort of lounge jazz.
Lounge jazz.
A bit of reggae, a bit of, childlike. Ding, 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 ding,
That's
ding,
right.
ding, ding, ding. And so that it starts off as a child's toy. And then I think I add some weird chords to it to make that dissonance.
That's right.
And screw that up, and then reggae, and then a bit of lounge jazz at the end.
But all with the
it's
same...
actually very contrived, all of that.
But it's fantastic. I love it.
Mm.
But it makes perfect sense in the context of the music. It doesn't feel contrived.
I felt so exposed with that album. I have to say, I made The Voyage of the Acolyte, which was with some of the Genesis guys, and it was much more. In some ways, although my heart was very much in it, I was in love with it. It was much more formula compared with Please Don't Touch, and I thought, let's just go right off the map with this. And I'd done it, and I thought, oh my God, it's like I was so nervous when I released that thing. I felt really exposed at that point. I thought, really out on a limb here. Will people like it? Will they?
I think that album's got a sense of real willfulness about it. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I've always, not just in musicians, just in other people too, filmmakers, for example, I've always admired that kind of, fuck you, I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
And you do feel that as a listener, you can pick up on that.
Relaxation music for sharks, if you can corner that area of...
You can feel that the musician is doing this because he has to, because he has a need, because he believes in it so much.
Yeah.